Discovery. Tjipo Mothobi, who's their Senior Sustainability Specialist, is going to take us through their ESG investment strategy. They were initially included in the ESG in 2005, but have also been included in the top performer in years 2008 and 2009. They're listed in the insurance sector with a constituent in the top 40 index. They currently have a trading price of 129 Rand, and since 2000 their share has performed and gained 1,059%. So well done to Discovery. Looking forward to your presentation, Tjipo. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. You know, to be on the graveyard shift after that lovely, delightful spread that I cooked the whole morning, I'm really delighted that at least I got a round of applause. First of all, we need to express our gratitude and also sincere acknowledgement to the JSE. I think we'll all agree that this type of platform is exceptional, number one. So to Corley, to Carla, the behind the scenes, thank you very, very much. I think institutionally we also need to be able to recognize the significant support that the JSE provides to us in being able to have these type of collaborative platforms. You know, it's always interesting when you get asked to present to be able to look at the flow and kind of calculate, well, you know what sector it is, so you have a sense of what they're going to speak about. But this was not that type of journey. And I must be honest, it was an excellent choice. Because I think for us as Discovery, the conversation that we are going to have today is really building on the excellent presentations that have taken place before us. So I will start by saying, this is the formal part of my presentation, and say a big thank you to the presenters who came ahead of us. A big round of applause, I think, is really in place for all of them. So please, if I could ask you, this is not my event, but please could you give the previous presenters a round of applause. Okay, so you have now done a little bit of exercise. I know that your blood is going and you are now focused. I think the one thing that we were very clear on in coming today was we wanted to take you through a bit of our journey. Creating shared value and the shared value insurance has been a great journey for us. I'm sure, as you can appreciate, we've had quite an amazing run over the past 12 months. We've had key acquisitions, full acquisition of our UK business. And I think more importantly, the partnerships that we've been able to develop have been amazing. We're quite clear around the fact that the success of our business is really around being able to build up on our big business data, our clinical data, and behind that we have a very strong actuarial model. I'm not going to go through the financial numbers because I think that those kind of speak to themselves, but I think the key area that I'd like to focus on is the impact that we have globally on 7 million customers with a diverse geography in 7 different markets, and also having a staff complement of 10,000 employees. What we've realized, and that's the journey that we'd want to talk about today, is that the value driver framework that we used, leveraging on the UN Global Compact and the UN PRI, we have realized that it's very unique, but we'd like to be able to speak to how we could potentially expand it. I think what's key for us, and I need to acknowledge our UN Global Compact focal point. Acheng, thank you very much for coming. The UN Global Compact is essentially for all of us a great guide in terms of our ESG engagement. What we'd like to be able to really focus on is the fact that there are key components that we probably haven't really spoken about. And these key components, we kind of are engaging on them, issues around ethics, but more importantly, issues around health, and health of workforces, health of communities. And as Discovery, we kind of have gone through a journey, and I think that some of you will recall the last time we presented here, Penny Hlabi, our EXCO member responsible for human resources and corporate sustainability, talked you through our early adoption of our sustainability strategy. Well, in that time, I think that's where we've created these new partnerships. We've recently become a signatory, formally become a signatory, actually, of the UN Global Compact as of June 15th this year. And that's where we suddenly started realizing we needed to explore these conversations. So it is with that contextualization that I'd like to go through today's presentation. I think one of the things that helped us define that the health of workforces and the health of communities was critical and key was the fact that we'd had collaborative engagements, and it's these type of engagements where we had started hearing from finance leaders the key corporate challenges that were facing them within the business, in the broader sense on the African continent, but also globally. But I'd like to focus a bit on that, on the areas of South Africa and Africa. And so if you look at the presentation slide, on the left-hand side, and I guess for you sitting in the front, on the right-hand side, we focused on the South African challenges. On the left-hand side, the comparison to the rest of Africa, what you'll see is the level of prioritization is slightly different. But there is a general kind of replicability across all sectors. And what we then did is we had a concentrated focus on South Africa, because South Africa is our home market. It's a focus market for us. We're committed to issues of diversity. We're committed to issues of transformation. And in the consultation, we realized that the repetition of these challenges kind of focused on these 4 key areas: employee productivity, rising wages and salaries, and the difficulty, which I think we can all relate to, the difficulty in attracting and, importantly, retaining qualified employees. And more importantly, employee morale. So around these issues, the conversation became quite compelling because it's very interesting. Whenever I sit at a table, there's always someone who will say to me, "Yes, my medical aid." And the compelling conversation, and we're laughing because it did happen just now, but the compelling conversation was, it wasn't just about having these dinner conversations or lunchtime conversations. It was a conversation that financial leaders were starting to have with us quite engagingly and saying, but what can we do? And we realized that it was important for us to look at how we could incorporate this within our sustainable development framework, which I'm sure for those of you that have gone through our last 2 years' reports, you'll be very familiar with our framework. And we realized that within this framework, we were covering the key issues. We were covering as we could see, the ESG framework. And we started saying, but we didn't want to have a situation where we then were having a conversation outside of the framework. And we really had to look at it, and I have one of our colleagues here from our finance team, Pumla. And one of the conversations that we started having internally was, but we don't want it to just be another conversation in just the sustainability sphere. Because we all know sustainability sometimes can be, as people will say, gray. And we then took a very conscious decision that this was a fundamental priority. Health was the new economic value driver. And this was not something we were identifying on our own, but it was something that collectively we were getting from our key stakeholders, our partners, through the engagement. And partnerships for us this year have been amazing. We now sit on the UN Global Compact local advisory committee. And these type of conversations we were already having because we were party and being called in to participate in these conversations. But then we suddenly realized that as much as we were having the conversation, it was just a conversation. And we needed to build it in. And so we defined that we're all ticking this box. We're also having to make sure that we focus really heavily in it. We've developed, and I think each of us in this room understands the reality of the development of the environmental space. I mean, my colleagues who have presented previously have been asked, and I thank the lady, and I anticipate that I might have my own questions, and I think I've got Q&As all ready for you. But on a serious note, this is becoming this was a bugbear at some point. It's a huge bugbear. For the mining sector, it was just the beginning and the end all of everything. But what we've seen is we've seen it also translate into a win-win. Because we've got energy savings, we've got engaged ways of continuing how we can develop and have a meaningful impact in society. And the third area was obviously social. And we are now saying, let's progress it, and let's probably look at what we would call the human capital around health. Now, as Discovery, as I mentioned earlier, big data is something that we have a lot of. But what we also realized is we needed to look at it from a global perspective. And the reality of it is, in the South African context, HIV has been the big concentrator. That's kind of where we focused. If we think about it, we've got companies like the mining sector who 15 years ago, and this was for large workforce companies, saw HIV as a huge challenge within their businesses. Well, in South Africa, we consume 25% of the global ARV supply. We've got stringent treatments in play. We've got more people on treatment than any other country in the world. And people are now living longer. But the reality of it is, in the blue, when we look at diabetes, we look at stroke, and we look at heart disease. Those are critically, not just in South Africa, but globally, becoming the leading cause of deaths. This contribution is providing towards 50% of mortality around the world. That's 80% of the burden of disease globally. I mean, that's scary. And those figures translate equally to South Africa. And so we had to take this, and we then realized, well, let's do a little bit of work in terms of the South African market. And we realized that over and above workforce health issues, we were not calculating what this was contributing towards absenteeism. So in terms of a round figure, because I know most of you in the room like predictability, the South African workforce absenteeism costs us 16 billion per year. I mean, the other figures that supported 50% of the employees have 5 to more risk factors outside the healthy range. 68% employees do not meet recommended physical activity guidelines. I mean, 34% of employees have poor nutrition. But there's a stark number here. The average employee takes up to 8 days sick leave annually, and that will cost you 10,000 Rand per year. Now, if you calculate that, that's a real number. It's a financial, imperative. We can measure it. And so what we found through our research, so I'm sure some of you around here have participated in our South African Companies Index, Healthy Companies Index. We also replicated that in the UK. We run the UK Healthy Company Index, and we're also going to be running a US Healthy Company Index. This is based on kind of being able to measure. And we're kind of saying these are more advocacy engagements, and we would like to be able to solidify it because we believe with the data that we have been able to build, that healthier employees are more productive. Now, if you look, and this slide, unfortunately, has got very tiny writing, but I want you to focus on the profile of healthy companies. And when you look at it, the performance against the S&P 500 shows you how our profile of healthier companies are performing better than the general S&P 500. Now, for us, when we looked at this, we then said, well, over the past 12 months, we've really been engaging. We had Mervyn King here earlier. And I think this slide just demonstrates to you kind of the key call to actions that we have had and we have requested. So in 2013, Adrian asked for, at the CGI, so the Clinton Global Initiative in New York, for companies to start reporting alongside their sustainability and financial measures, their health risks. So it's been a growing call. And I mean, for us, we start at the top. And we've really said that this is an encompassing engagement. This is a commitment that not just sits in the CEO's office, but this is a board imperative that we have been provided with. To say, how do you collectively, collaboratively look at having a healthier impact in terms of society? So through our through our Vitality Institute, based out of the US, we have been leading some engagements with a few leading experts, companies, as well as academic groups. We have defined so far a list of matrices that we would be able to measure against. So on the culture of health, leadership, corporate capacity and the voice of an employee, health risk measurement and interventions, health status, job status, strategic communications around wellness, community relations, and the physical environment. So as Discovery, from a physical environment point of view, we will also be looking at moving into a 6-star building called One Discovery Place. It is contributing to a lot of the traffic disruptions. We appreciate that. But we do realize that being a low-impact business, that it is important that we lead by example. A number of you will also be joining us. I know Liberty, I know we've got Sasol that are also moving into new buildings. But we're saying part of the conversation around the health of your workers must include the critical issues that the ESG also supports. So we're not looking at reinventing the wheel, we're looking at an augmentation process. The augmentation process, we also realize, does require collaboration. So we are looking at refining the measures around the matrix for September, so between September and December of this year. But the reality of it is we realize that we can't do it alone. We need to do it together. So I'm going to give you some quick processes on what we think are easy wins, because I think what we've experienced with Pumla and the rest of the teams that have been going out, including Ricky Faber, our group CFO, is we've already been going through various consultation platforms. So some of you may have heard about fourth bottom line through the different interventions and the engagements that we've been doing on analyst platforms. And so we realized that we need to be able to get companies to become more progressive and action-orientated in their thinking. We realized that we need to be able to leverage in providing wellness programs and encouraging participation. And research shows that employees who participate in wellness programs exhibit lower absenteeism. So, apologies. So, clearly, this path is the path that we know is easy to drive. This is very immediate. But we're going to take a phased approach. And we'd like to be able to consult with you and the various different stakeholders on how best we can engage. We understand that we need to create a culture of health in the workplace and reporting on this culture. We appreciate that the reporting frameworks will be enhanced to facilitate reporting on the organization's culture of health and improvements, as well as outcomes for companies' workforces. We realize that a health and wellness reporting index is going to be critical to creating and scoring health outcomes. And finally, we realize that if we're able to put that together, that we're going to need to be able to ensure that this becomes an integral indicator in the overall organizational performance with a broader corporate accountability framework. So simply put, we all know triple bottom line, and we would like to propose fourth bottom line. So the question that gets asked all the time, and earlier when I was speaking to Artie was saying, do you guys know exactly what you would like us all to do? And I'm going to take some time and I'm going to actually articulate it quite clearly. It's 5 key points. Number 1, we want to be able to create an aspirational benchmark. So we've already asked. I'd like you to participate in the consultative processes that we're going to have. This is one of those consultative processes. We would like to be able to continue through the guidance of the JSE on how we can continue engaging. We also know that you like predictability. And so we would ensure that we have a clearly well-known group of leading companies that we are engaging with. We've already started having conversations with some of our other insurers. And I'd like to comfortably say that there'll be an interesting collaboration between insurers in terms of being able to report. And that's the type of engagement that we're kind of looking at, multi-sectorial, across sectors. We'd like to also be able to look at ensuring that the screening of companies is against what the JSE calls, and I'd like the way you phrase it, Corley, we want a pool of companies that are screened against best global practice and local imperatives. So we're going to leverage off what is existing. Number 4, and I think this becomes the key question. We want to create this aspirational benchmark that allows for investors to ask, why is this company important? So health is not just about the workforce, but it's also about how we improve health and how we make a meaningful contribution towards society. And lastly, we'd like to look at how we can engage more from a sectorial approach perspective in a very collaborative fashion. So through the UN Global Compact, we will be leveraging off their network to be able to engage. We also have a key partner in terms of we realize that sustainability futures also revolve around our cities. And so we have a partnership with the city of Joburg. I always say it's very interesting when you have the mayor of Joburg and the CEO of Discovery speaking around things like how they would ideally, if they could just not have a day job, change and have daylight savings. So I'm not sure between our mayor and Adrian whether this will really happen. But the impact is around an honest engagement around how we can how we can provide change for sustainable futures. Based off the Oxford Brook Commission, it's very clear that cities need to engage with businesses more progressively to be able to ensure that we can create sustainable futures. This probably brings me to the point where I should say that we all know that, part of the engagement is that we know Sandton is going to be closed down partly for the month of October. And so for us, we're a disruptor. As Discovery, the model and the manifestation of our business in terms of our vitality model has been about how we can disrupt and how we can change people's behavior, how we can monetize behavior. And that has been the link, and that's the element of our business engagement. And we are very clear when we were approached by the city to see how we could assist in terms of changing behavior, in terms of this big agenda that they have around the Sandton precinct. And we looked at how we could engage with the city. So one of the key things that we're doing is how we can have an engaged, viable forum. And one of the things we have done is we have provided support in the creation of the Healthy Schools program. We have the city's mayor's special advisor of sustainability, who's joined us as well. And we are very committed to seeing how we can help the city in incentivizing and monetizing behavior, because we're clear that we tend to have a key focus around the immediate benefits versus putting the effort to be able to grow and look at the longevity of your engagement. So in having said that, I think I've said quite a mouthful in terms of what we would like and how we would like to engage. We're clear around how we've leveraged and positioned this in our sustainability strategy. This is supported. We think that this is definitely a well-supported governance program on our side, through our CEO, through our Social and Ethics Board Committee, through our main board. And we would want to be able to ensure that if we are going to do it, we do it in collaboration with yourselves. So as I said, the journey to our presentation was easy because I think we've seen and heard how everybody has leveraged and has strengthened all their reporting frameworks to ensure that we're having an impact in terms of not just our business, but also in terms of our communities. And in closing, I guess I've created the 5 areas with quite a bit of information. So on each of your tables, you'll find that we've provided you with a corporate brochure to allow for you to be able to read a little bit further. I'm sure you can appreciate why I have brought so many colleagues with me, is because if there is quite a bit of uptake, we'll then be able to have the conversations. But the conversation for us right now is this is a journey. And we're really hoping that we can collaboratively work with all of you. And we thank the JSE for the opportunity to have been able to share this. So in closing, I'd like to say the following. As much as we're a disruptor, we're also very clear that our success is also about collaboration, collaborative efforts and partners. And so I close off with saying we welcome inputs on how we can make this as aspirational a benchmark as possible. And further engagements are definitely ones that we would want to be able to do, leveraging our international partners. I'd like to close off, before we have questions, I'd like to share one of our partnership projects that we're doing with the city. It is the upcoming duathlon that will be held during Eco-Mobility Month. But I also want to part with this statement from the WHO, that the wealth of business depends on the health of workers. So this is a defined process that we believe that we're supporting in terms of the WHO's mandate. And we hope that we'll be able to take you through with us in this journey in terms of how we can share value. Thank you very much. You can, thank you. It's 45 seconds. Yeah, it's exactly 45 seconds, so no stress. Could we have some volunteers? Thank you very much. If I could sing, I would have put some more music behind it, but I think you get a general sense. So thank you very much. I'm ready for questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just glad that you went back to the city. You made a glib comment that you are going to Discovery One. You're glad for the traffic. The question that came to mind then, you are glad that you are adding to pollution, the carbon emission of the cars. So while you are glad with the traffic, it's not in your forte, but we may need to address it. I mean, it was a glib comment, so I'm not going to take you to task for that. I'm just making a glib comment also. I believe we classify you in the financial sector. Oh, by the way, thanks. Greetings to Penny. We were here sharing the same table. We raised a few issues. We were able to facilitate that our researchers can engage with your company. Although there were problems, it was not easy. But anyway, we managed to go through your ESG compliance issues. But what I want to raise, which I should have raised with other financial sector, it's unfair that I'm raising it with you alone now. Financial services, it's on the environment. Because you are in the sector that is considered to be low impact. As an investor, I would be interested in knowing how you're going to counter the effects of the electronic emissions that we get from these electronics. You know, right now people are proud. It's a paperless economy, paperless situation, and so on. Ne? But the things that we are using now, they transmit more electrons, and we seem not to be looking into the health effects of that. So I don't know whether you're going to look into that and put it forth. On one of your drivers, you spoke about, I think it's the third one, about employees. We're talking about employee welfare. That's well and good. I suppose from a commercial point of view, that's well and good. But our interest as this type of an investor would be interested in the wellness and well-being of your employee within your company now. Not the external employees where you kind of like market the product and the service. Within your company, how involved are the employees in policy development, in all these, the fourth bottom line and all other things? It may be something that only belongs to management, the drivers, the sustainability team, and the CFO and the COO. But we find that the staff and the employees are not involved. I would be interested to know how Discovery shows us the discovery of the best way to run with employees. Thank you.
Thank you. So could I answer those, because it's three questions. So I think first of all on the City of Joburg partnership, as you've mentioned, it would seem that we are adding. And I wouldn't say that, and I say it under correction because we do have a representation from the city who is actively involved in our partnership. The creation of this engagement with the city has really been around And when I say we're a disruptor, it's around how we can leverage our shared value engagement, because we monetize behavior. We want to change behavior. And it's very interesting you asked that, because we actually had a partnership forum meeting. And part of our commitment to the city is that we have 3,000 parking bays. It would be shockingly disappointing if, as Discovery, we are not able to actually get our staff to change behavior. So one of the initiatives we are already looking at is we're encouraging our staff to really start considering carpooling as an option. We are in the process, I think, very advanced. Unfortunately, our head of environmental sustainability couldn't make it today. But we are part of the process is looking at how we are incentivizing, and also just in terms of how we will be tracking the reduction of greenhouse emissions. So I think that probably leads, and I'm going to jump to your third question. I think on your third question, in terms of employee engagement, we are actively engaged, and even around the issues around and because of the way we are actively engaged, the issues around eco-mobility have been easy for us to engage on, because we have a number of internal committees that have got staff representation, team leader representation, and supervisory representation, and we consult on a weekly basis. I co-chair that forum with our head of group facilities. So there is a collective engagement. Part of the representation in terms of engaging the employee is we have a number of initiatives. This year we engaged on what was called the 10-ton challenge, where we encouraged our staff, and like all pilots, we've taken key learnings, and we've had amazing successes on it, where we encouraged our staff literally to engage in different activities and initiatives. And you're absolutely right. It may seem like it's the commercial opportunity, but I'll use a phrase that I use in induction that myself and Penny use when we induct. We always say that, you know what, you come into Discovery, it's okay if you smoke. We're not going to stop you. But if you're going to go to the first floor and you get into the lift, you are really going to get the look that is not going to really, you're not going to be able to pretend you didn't see. So there's simple encouragements, there's simple kind of engagements. And I think for me, the question you ask is a question that's not just about this type of market, but it's a question that a lot of people ask, where they ask, so it's all good and well that you're getting other people to do it, but what about you? So I'll also even share from a social and ethics point of view, that was a very clear imperative mandate that this year in our integrated report that we had to report on this. And so the matrices that I'm sharing with you, very interestingly, we had challenged conversations in the business where everyone was saying, but we haven't even consulted and we're going to be sharing these matrices. Is it not going to look like we're being dictatorial? And the response was, if you're not going to start here internally, how are we going to measure it? So I'm hoping that I've answered question 1 and 2. The health effects of technology, I think that's an ongoing one. And as I said, Tsepi Molife, who heads up environmental sustainability for us, has done a lot of work on this. And it's continued, because you're absolutely right. The emissions from other technology outputs is critical. And I think what I'd like to comfortably say is we'd be more than happy, because I could stand here for 4 hours and talk about how brilliant we are. But sometimes it's around you coming through to us and us engaging and giving you opportunity to actually see what we're talking about. My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Can I add on the carbon emissions in the new building? I think one of the committees we've actually quite a few people working from home. We have 500 people working from home. And looking at our call center, we actually connected our call center to work at home.
I didn't hear the comment that you're one of them. It's fine. That's fine.
So we do look at the carbon emissions. Thanks.
Sorry.
Hello. Hi. It's Mandy. It's Mandy from Coheso. Discovery through Vitality Vitality has really worked for you as a business, and it's been a great value driver and differentiator from some of your peers. And this sort of index that you're proposing, or this engagement that you're proposing, is basically, from what it seems to me, it's just vitality being spread out, possibly to those people who don't currently use it. If I would think of it like that, because if you use vitality currently, you're incentivized to be more active and to be healthier, because it decreases your medical aid costs. And it also reduces your risk as a business. So I guess my question is, with your current market share in the medical aid sector and this types of initiative, have you done any sort of, I'll take our friend from Liberty, sort of DCF framework, have you done a sort of a DCF analysis on what this would do for your business? Because I would assume if people got healthier, it would reduce your risk as Discovery.
I'm conscious of time, so maybe I can take the two questions, if you don't mind.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you want to answer first and then
Maybe, yeah, I'll answer. So you know what? And I think your question is probably is actually two parts, because I think on the one, is it that we're leveraging the vitality model? As a business, this is our operating model. This is how we engage. So when we talk about being a disruptor in the market, it's because we leverage it. And in essence, what we're looking at is we're making sure that all parties are satisfied with a differentiated product, but incentivizing along the way. The flip side to that, and I think that's what you're asking, is it not that you're then just taking the model and just repeating it? And no, I think what we're doing is we're taking the principles of the operating model to be able, and the clinical research that we've taken behind this, to now say, well, this is a way where we can make your business more important. You are able to measure the productivity of your staff by reducing your absenteeism. You know, it's a fundamental, I mean, it's a fundamental issue that we can't run away from the fact that we do live in an economy where we are unhealthy. I mean, our obesity rates are phenomenal. Our heart condition, we could go on and on in terms of the NCDs. I'm always saying is we're looking at a way to be able for you to measure, but also a way for you to be able to encourage better performance. I'm hoping that I've responded. And I think this is part, and to your question, and a third part to that response, is that's why we are looking for this collaborative engagement and approach. So some of it might be in smaller forums, it could be in bigger forums, it could be taking advantage of this current forum, but we would want to be able to have a continued engagement, because we're simply saying it's not just about the business, but it's about the business that we would like to be able to all collectively engage on, to be able to have a health impact on our communities and our societies. I'm hoping that I've given you a response. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Just two interrelated questions and then a third question, if I may. Just the first two. The first one, of course, private healthcare insurance in South Africa is fundamentally a niche enterprise at present. And what are the initiatives within the group to broaden the offering into a more affordable space? That's the first part. Of course, a second and related part of that is, does Discovery see the potential emergence of a universal healthcare offering like the NHI as a complementary or a competitive offering in the market? That's the second part. And then the third question, which is unrelated, is you've highlighted the emergence of non-communicable diseases as important in terms of the health, the disease load within populations. Have you guys tried to model the impact, for example, of climate change on the instance of infectious diseases, particularly in like the emerging market context?
Okay, so can I start with your third question? I think on the issues around climate change and how we could potentially integrate it into the matrices, that's definitely a conversation that I think we've heard, and we would love to be able to continue on it. I think what we're looking at is we would have to be able to have a collaborative input to be able to engage on it. So simple answer is yes, we're open to it, but we also appreciate and understand that it has to be a consultative process, because we also don't want this to be belaboring to companies to then have this additional process, because we all know the progress to even getting everybody to be able to report on the CDP. The first year is always a challenge. Second year, it's still a challenge. But over time, you're able to do it. So we would want to be able to leverage off kind of also the global reporting frameworks that also exist. On the first question, broadening in terms of other partnerships, yes, we have. And I think that, interesting enough, I'd like to actually share the partnership that we have with the City of Joburg, because I think that demonstrates how broad we've looked at it. So the first partnership we have with them is on healthy schools. The aim of the city is to look at how they could improve the health of their communities. And what we've looked at is how we can start by improving children's lives and children's health. And so our first initiative is around a Healthy Schools program that helps improve children's health within their school environment. So it's leveraging off our Vitality program, and that's how we've set it up. We aim to be able to give back at least 5 years to young children in terms of their livelihood. So if you compare that to the Vitality age, it's reducing their health age. And then, most importantly, the aim from the city and the mayor's vision is to have the largest schools program by 2018 in the world. And I guess in Southern Hemisphere, that would be quite a big ask, and that's about 1 million children. So that's number one. Number two is around child safe. We've run a program, and we ran a pilot in Cape Town where we looked at improving children's environments in terms of transportation to schools. We hear about it in the news. So we've leveraged our Discovery Insure model in terms of creating a generation of better drivers by introducing telematic systems into taxis and being able to monitor their behavior and monetize and change behavior. We recently, on July the 31st, actually held our first celebration or anniversary and recognizing the best driver in the city of Cape Town. And we're taking these key learnings and we're leveraging them and setting up to be able to do this in the city of Joburg, and we will do this in Q3 of this year. The third part of it is leveraging our employee volunteer program. To the gentleman's question, what are you doing? You know, it's easy to talk about what you want others to do. We aim to have 100% volunteerism into the Orange Farm area, where we would be looking at the building of community centers, the building of a new clinic, supporting using our clinical staff, but most importantly, taking our own resources by getting our employees who have a vast number of skills into the community. And we'll do that over a concentrated period, but we aim to have 100% volunteerism. And that would get us to a total of 8,000 staff members and we would have a concentrated period where we would at least try to, at least in one, over 365 days, you can have different numbers flowing in, but we would aim to at least one to 2 days of a year ensure that we have that maximum impact with 8,000 people moving in, which is a long global practice in terms of what kind of the multinationals do around the world in different developing markets. And then I guess the third one, and I guess that's a question that we get all the time. I don't think it's unique to this. Do we see the NHI being a competitive or complementary market? We absolutely see it as a complementary market. And I think at the moment we're involved in a number of pilots in different communities. I'm more than happy offline to have a conversation, but you can also read it up in the last 2 years' annual report. So I did take note that we weren't supposed to repeat what's in the annual report. But I think to your point, because that's a question that is asked, we're very supportive of the NHI. I mean, when you look at Obamacare, this is something that is critical that we need to ensure that we can improve communities and their access to healthcare. And so simply put to your answer, yeah, we are absolutely supportive. And we do see ourselves as part of the process in terms of the design and the collaborative engagement. So you will start to hear, as we go forward, a lot more of the collaborative partnerships. I'm hoping I've answered your question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.